given the fact that we were chair of ASEAN, we could have actually dictated the agenda. And you have some critics saying that the reason that ASEAN did not take up as much as it should have the alleged human rights violations in the Philippines is that, or the Rohingya crisis rather, is the president did not want to be asked in return about the alleged human rights violations in the Philippines. Parang ayoko na itakil yan kasi mamaya ibalik nyo pa sa akin.
Absolutely false. It's the reverse. In New York, I was quiet about the issue and hearing the discussion, and when we did not have 10, I offered and the palace allowed it for us to be the one to have a chairman statement, meaning it's not a joint communique. Yes, we can dictate the agenda as chair, but we can also destroy ASEAN as chair. So the president was not thinking about Philippine or himself, because we're not guilty about any of that, the politicization of human rights sa Pilipinas. We've explained it. We've repaired our relationship with Australia, with the US. We're ongoing with EU. It's just the biased, noisy groups who keep insisting their numbers. So President's stand is parang, don't scold me on human rights because we're all sovereign and equal. Sa UN pwede niyong gawin. And UN Secretary General discussed with me human rights, but he didn't confront President Duterte. He was diplomatic. He appreciated the UN ASEAN summit. So if you're going to say that the President didn't bring it up, well, all the other leaders didn't bring it up. But by the way, no, President Trump, he brought it up, but in a diplomatic manner.
First of all, they say that the deal won't be legally binding, so it's more of like a moral agreement.
Well, first of all, let me give credit to everyone who worked with it, pati yung past administration. And the Philippines is known worldwide, no? Despite our own problems in taking care of our OFWs, as a leader sa migration at saka migrant workers issues, no? We're looked at as very progressive. The President has more than doubled the assistance to National Fund for 2018. So from 400 million this year, na naubos namin at nagamit very efficiently. So next year we'll have 1 billion. Ang legal assistance fund natin, more than double next year. And we're working on a Secretary Bebot Bello and I are working on an OFW cluster. If the President approves it, we'll have better coordination in the Philippines. No? So this, what does this agreement? What does this agreement give us? No? It gives us a consensus now, diba, that we have to recognize migrant workers' rights. Kasi dati parang country ko to, papasok ka, diba, sumunod ka sa akin, sa kultura ko, etc. So tama naman na sumunod ka sa batas nila, sa cultural, diba? But may rights ka. Ilan oras ka matutulog. For example, there was
pagbisita mo ng pamilya mo.
Yes, there was this one foreign area before that yung domestic helpers were made to clean windows in medium rise and high rise outside. So to the efforts of our of the DFA and labor na ano nila yung gobyerno noon at pinagbawal na ngayon yung domestic helpers to do that outside, no? But that's a bilateral. So so there are certain countries na nagsasama-sama yung iba't ibang migrants to push for migrant workers act. Of course, Europe and the US, halimbawa, you know, Australia have very good laws for migrant workers. So even if it's not legally binding pa, no, it's still a giant step forward.
Okay, I read part of this agreement, and it says that under this agreement, you won't be able to hold the passport of the migrant worker. But the problem is, all or most employers all over the world do. Filipinos, and actually even I think they were saying Thailand has many migrant workers as well, and other Asian countries. If it's not legally binding, how can you prevent an employer from doing that?
There are just certain areas na widespread pa rin. Sa iba, case per case. But with this agreement, you can come to the country and bug them about it. So diplomacy, I'm learning myself. I'm no expert on foreign affairs, you know, but we have great people in the department. And, you know, they say, once you have this agreement, may moral ano ka na eh. Di ba? It's just like civil rights in the US, di ba? Even when they had the law, di ba? President Kennedy had to send in the National Guard because sinesegregate pa rin ang African-American sa puti. So even if it's legally binding, that's another step pa. How do we provide the lawyers? At saka, remember yung iba pag nakasuhan, tina-terminate na eh. Pag terminate, within 2 weeks, you have to leave that country or 1 week. So, paano mo pakakasuhan yung employer mo? Nandito ka na sa Pilipinas. So there are issues like that. But when 10 countries come together, no, and remember, hindi na malit ang ASEAN, more than 600 million people, 6th largest economy in the world.
Third.
Number 6 tayo in terms of the economy. Okay. No? So, if you look at the number of young people, in the Philippines in the next few years, 1/3 will be less than 14 years old. No? So, it's grabe ang kailangan natin gawin sa education at health, but grabe ang ating advantage because aging yung ibang society. So, what this is a giant leap forward, and we can use this agreement, diba, to push for better domestic legislation.
But
once may domestic legislation, may enforce mo na legally.
Okay, but I mean, I'm just curious, what happens when a deal like this on migrant workers is the outcome of the ASEAN? Do all member countries sign?
Yes.
Okay. And when they sign, morally they are agreeing to follow these set of rules?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the reason it's important is even if it's not legally binding, in their own countries,
it's
they will...
binding.
Yes.
It's still binding. Ang ibig lang sabihin naman legally binding, ano yung redress mo? Ang problema, what court, what arbitration, saan ka pupunta. So, siyempre, ayaw naman ng countries na pag tinuro mo sila sa labor, sa ibang country ka kakasuhan. So, that's why there are issues there.
Okay. In the last ASEAN summit, did President Duterte discuss the Rohingya situation with Aung San Suu Kyi?
It came up now and then. But ASEAN nga siya and member ang Myanmar. So hindi naman pwedeng lahat ng meeting, and we had dozens of meetings, you keep bringing it up, di ba? But there were some meetings where some leaders took it up. But of course, Myanmar's leader did discuss and give us an update. And then during the ASEAN, they gave assurances, no, of what will happen to the internally displaced person. So it's just a question for our analysis, how fast they will do it, how sincere they are in doing it. That's why if you see, we're just wording it positively, that we encourage them, diba? We support their effort to implement the Kofi Annan Advisory Committee. So sa amin, it's diplomatic language. Walang kaiba nun, sir. Oy, i-implement nyo yung Kofi Annan. We encourage you to. It's diplomatic, but it doesn't mean that we're not being hard and we're not pushing it.
Ambassador Locsin said the Philippines should have abstained from a vote on the draft on the UN Rohingya resolution. Why did we vote? We could have abstained, like I mean, a total of 135 countries voted in favor of the resolution. 26 abstained. Locsin said that a yes vote would kill the ASEAN, where Myanmar, of course, is a member.
Okay. First of all, let's relate it to ASEAN.
Okay.
Ang gusto ng ating Pangulo at ng ibang leaders ng ASEAN is to have peace and prosperity in our region. Because with peace and prosperity, di ba, yung terrorism, yung kawalan ng trabaho, poverty, you can address. Now, there's a grave situation happening there, a humanitarian situation. And we're the chairman of ASEAN. No? So, ang option talaga natin, mag-no or mag-abstain.
Yes.
Why? Because they're allowing yung AHA, ito yung humanitarian arm ng ASEAN.
You mean mag
to
yes
go in.
or mag-abstain?
No, mag-abstain or mag-no.
No, okay.
Because if we're yes as ASEAN chair, di ba, mag-harden up again sa atin ang mga leaders ng Myanmar, including their military. And instead na ngayon may access tayo, nakakapasok tayo. And just last night, I talked to Senator Gordon. They had good exchanges and they're asking him to come back right away. And the Philippine Red Cross to help the Myanmar Red Cross and the International Red Cross para makapasok.
Okay.
In other words, what's the objective ba ng resolution?
And
objective is humanitarian.
What does voting yes mean?
Well, it's our unique situation. You cannot compare the Philippines with the 100+ countries because they're not chair of ASEAN and they're not being asked to help. But the objective of the resolution is dalawa. Address the root causes no, nung problema sa Rakhine State, and secondly, immediate humanitarian access. We're getting to do that by the way we voting. So it might sound to others because sa .com nakalagay kasi vote against humanitarian assistance. Mali po yun. That's one of the lines sa resolution. Mas tama yung nasa inyo kanina, no? Against the human rights situation. So, in a perfect world, we can vote yes and we can go in. But, you know, that's not the situation on the ground. Situation on the ground is that by voting no or by abstaining, our humanitarian people can come in. And when the humanitarian groups come in, there's eyes on the ground. The human rights situation also improves because international observers are there already.
But then Ambassador Locsin said it will be different when it goes to the plenary. He said, I will push for abstention. It is the right thing. But a yes vote from the Philippines, he says, is divisive and it will kill ASEAN. He even cited the ASEAN does not correct Britain's mistakes in Burma.
Yes. Well, of course, Ambassador Locsin is brilliant and he articulates his self, you know, that way. So we have to talk whether it's going to be abstain or no. But tama siya na it cannot be yes, especially when you're ASEAN chair and especially when there is a need, no? Not only for the Muslim population. You know, maraming hindi may alam that there's more than 100 minorities in Myanmar. And there are a lot of minorities that are fighting each other. And yung makikita mo sa CNN and BBC are the Muslim population who nasa Bangladesh. But there's a lot of internally displaced sa Myanmar na non-Muslim that also need our attention. That's why yung foreign ministers ng ASEAN, we had a statement that addressed 4 issues. Yung humanitarian, talking with Bangladesh para makabalik yung mga tao, addressing the root cause, and then stopping all violence. No? So we're sticking to our ASEAN because this is the United Nations resolutions. No? If you read it, may parts kasi na very tough or may judgment na eh on the military of Myanmar. No? So, you know, how can you say, guilty na kayo, tapos pasok kami para tumulong? Diba? So, that's the situation we are in.
Okay, so this is the actual UN draft. What essentially you believe is we should vote a no, not abstain.
Abstain or no is our option. No? But so far, we voted no. That was the call of the New York PE. They were looking at our historical voting trends. No? So now there's a discussion internally and with some experts whether the no or the abstain would be the better vote.
How did he bring it up? Because at first, Attorney Harry Roque had a different statement. The White House had a different statement. What exactly?
They're both correct.
Okay, they're both correct.
Tama si Harry Roque because hindi naman sinabing, Rodrigo or Mr. President, I want to talk to you about the human rights or what's happening here. Tama naman yung White House because the discussion was on the drug war. And while they were discussing it, so President Duterte was showing him, he had these documents with him. So he was showing, look at the UNODC. The UNODC says, so this aggressive, violent, bizarre.
This is what the President was showing President Trump? This one?
This one, yung UN, United Nations on Drugs and Office on Drugs and Crime.
Okay, go ahead.
Then they describe kasi each and every drug. So many countries kasi they use cannabis, which is marijuana. Diba? Or cocaine. If you look at risk of cocaine, diba, how does it affect users, diba? Makikita mo dyan, it affects your lungs. Excessive cocaine causes overdose, diba? But walang nakalagay na violent tendencies. But if you go to
the UN
methamphetamine, no, which is shabu, no, methamphetamine, makikita mo, aside from depression, sleep, etc., no, nakalagay dito that yung erratic behavior and violence.
Okay, let's get to the discussion. So
when they were discussing like that, so President Duterte was saying, we don't shoot people na nakatalikod, nakadapa, etc. My police shoots people when, you know, they're high and they fight back. So he even told about this policeman.
But you're sure about all of that? As the case in all the deaths?
You know, we're talking about, people keep forgetting that 100,000 have been arrested. 3,000 have been killed in operations. During Pinoy's time, it was about 5% that killed in operation. Now it's about 3.5 to 4%. It's even gone down. But the number of operations we have now, it's much, much more than before. And if you look in other countries that use shabu, ganun din. So we're not saying, nakita natin yung ilang cases na police talaga ang pumatay.
Yeah.
So you assume, no, you assume that it's legitimate, but you investigate. But we're saying, you cannot assume na lahat yan ay may maling ginawa ang police, given na shabu yung ginagamit. Kung cocaine o marijuana ang ginagamit or LSD or others, pwede mo sabihin walang violent tendency o hindi praning or hindi walang psychological. So, but this was the discussion with President Trump. So, they were engaged. They did talk about human rights, but in the context.
But what did President Trump say? Did he say the U.S. is concerned about these violations alleged or no?
Hindi insecure si President Trump. President Trump is a very secure leader, you know. So the noise being created by the people who want to politicize human rights, kasi may human rights constituencies doon so nag-iingay na. Other NGOs, they get their money from making noise about human rights. So President Trump's interest is people are safe. That's why anti-terrorism and security. So he said the other side of human rights, paano yung mga biktima na inosente?
Or do you think he purposely didn't mention it because he was consciously rebuilding ties with the Philippines?
He didn't have to because it was in the conversation already. So I can't speculate whether he was going to bring it up in the end or not. But during the conversation, it was all talked about.
Should we honestly worry when President Duterte talks about forming a revolutionary government?
Well, two quick points. One is I always say that I always take the president very seriously.
Okay.
No? But not always literally. Why?
But
he's an intellectual. You just people don't know it sometimes in the media.
But why would he say that?
Well,
I mean, it's not
yun
even...
ang naiintindihan ng tao A lot of people on the ground, you know, with the slow, ikaw, hindi mo ba gusto batuhin yung cellphone mo in certain areas dahil ang bagal, di ba? Pag na-traffic ka ng 2-3 oras, kapag ka nawalan ka ng trabaho, you know, things like that, the inclusiveness is creating a spirit of rebellion and the non-inclusiveness around the world. That's why nga you have the Brexit, you have this populist movement, etc. No? So the president, that's why I'm saying don't take literally. Mahilig siya sa hyperbole, sa figures of speech. Kung titingnan mo, may caveat naman siya Yeah. If the terrorists are going to take over, magre-revolutionary government na ako. Kung kayong oligarchs, kukunin nyo lahat at hindi nyo ibibigay sa tao, mabuti pang mag-revolutionary government tayo. So he's not threatening it. Sabi ko nga
I know what you mean. He's not saying, magtatayo na ako ng revolutionary government now.
Yung mga nagtatayo ng revolutionary government, you just wake up the next day, na you're under, no one says, I'll do it next week or I'll do it next month. So you have to see his threat, diba, in context to how he wants to change the country. No? And it's bearing fruit. So halimbawa, maraming oligarchs na dating hindi nagbabayad na ngayon. But to be fair to many of the very rich, they're seeing that the rising tide lifts all ships. So ngayon na nakikita nila that yung not only Metro Manila, yung think of Visayas, Mindanao, Northern Luzon, they're investing left and right. Their stocks are going through the roof. So, you know, love and hate love and fear Kailangan takot ka sa law, takot ka sa gobyerno. Let me end with this. President Duterte does not want you to fear him. He wants you to fear the law. Because if you fear the law, there's equality. Ang problema nga, sabi niya, yung powerful, they don't fear the law. They think they can get away with anything. That's why he has to speak that way.
Okay.